A strange encounter. The night was cold, and the wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a sense of unease. In the small, quiet town, nothing ever seemed to happen. It was a peaceful place, where people went about their lives without any surprises. But tonight was different. Something strange was in the air. Emma had lived alone for as long as she could remember. She didn't mind the solitude. In fact, it suited her. She enjoyed the silence, the stillness of the countryside. Her little cottage was nestled on the edge of the woods, far away from the noise and chaos of the town. But tonight, something had caught her attention. A strange sound, like a low rumble, echoed from the direction of the forest. At first Emma thought it was just the wind, or perhaps a wild animal. But the noise grew louder, and she could feel the ground tremble beneath her feet. It wasn't an animal. This was something else. Curious, Emma grabbed her flashlight and stepped out into the chilly night. The wind seemed to guide her steps as she walked toward the woods. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, casting everything in an eerie darkness. As she approached the forest's edge, the sound grew stronger. It was a hum, almost like machinery. Then she saw it. A bright light pierced through the trees, illuminating the forest floor. At first, Emma thought it was just a passing car, but when she looked closer, she saw something that made her heart skip a beat. A massive object, glowing with an otherworldly light, was partially embedded in the ground. The craft was unlike anything she had ever seen, sleek, metallic, and shaped like a ship from a science fiction movie. It looked damaged, with one side crumpled and smoking slightly. Emma froze in place, her mind racing. Was it a plane that had crashed, or something else entirely? The possibilities ran through her head, but before she could act on them, she heard a soft cry. Turning quickly, Emma's eyes searched the ground. In the shadows, she spotted a small figure. It was lying in a patch of grass, barely visible in the dim light. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she rushed forward. She bent down to get a closer look and gasped. The figure wasn't human. It was a small child, but it didn't look like any child she had ever seen. Its skin was a pale greenish color, and its eyes large and dark stared up at her in fear. The child's clothes were torn, and it was shivering from the cold. "Hey, ... are you okay?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling as she reached out her hand. The child flinched at first, but then slowly took her hand, its grip weak but desperate. Emma gently pulled the child into her arms, feeling its small body shake. "I'll help you," she said, even though she wasn't sure how. Her thoughts were racing. What was this child? Where had it come from? And how had it ended up alone in the woods? The child's eyes blinked slowly, as though trying to understand her words. Then, in a voice so soft Emma could barely hear it, the child spoke. "Safe." Emma's heart sank. The word was simple, but the look in the child's eyes told her that it was more than just a question. It was a plea for help. The child wasn't just lost. It was frightened, alone, and in danger. Emma didn't know what to do. She had never been in a situation like this before. But one thing was clear. The child needed help. Without thinking, Emma stood up, cradling the alien child in her arms. She glanced back at the spaceship, still glowing faintly in the distance. Something about it felt wrong, as though it didn't belong in this world. But her focus was on the child. She couldn't leave it out here in the cold and dark. Not alone, the walk back to the cottage seemed longer than it should have. Emma's mind was racing. What had she found in the forest? Was it really an alien? Was she imagining things? Her heart was filled with both fear and awe as she carefully made her way back, each step feeling like it carried her deeper into the unknown. Once inside the warmth of her cottage, Emma set the child down gently on the couch. She wrapped a blanket around it, hoping it would feel comforted. As she busied herself trying to figure out what to do next, she kept her eye on the child. The alien's large, dark eyes watched her closely, following her every movement. The silence between them felt heavy, filled with unspoken questions. "Who are you?" Emma asked softly, her voice barely a whisper. The child didn't respond immediately, but it seemed to understand. It reached out its hand, palm up, as if asking for something. Emma hesitated for a moment, unsure what the gesture meant, but then she placed her hand in the child's, and the moment she did, a strange sensation washed over her. It was a feeling of warmth, like a connection that crossed the boundaries of language and species. The child wasn't just seeking safety, it was reaching out for understanding. Emma's heart clenched with emotion. She had no idea what she had stumbled upon. But she knew one thing for certain: her life would never be the same again. She looked at the alien child, who was now resting peacefully on the couch. Emma sighed deeply, a mixture of wonder and fear in her heart. This was only the beginning. And as she sat beside the child, Emma couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the night had in store for her. The alien child's secrets. The next morning, Emma woke up with a feeling she couldn't explain. The house was quiet, and the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains. She sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes, but then it all came rushing back to her: the crash, the child, the strange feeling that she couldn't shake. Emma got up and walked to the living room, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The child was still sleeping on the couch, wrapped in a warm blanket. Its small, greenish form was peaceful now, but Emma couldn't stop staring at it. The child was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its large eyes were still wide, full of curiosity, but they seemed softer now. The night's fear had faded, and Emma wondered what kind of creature she had brought into her home. She quietly made herself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, trying to think, was this really happening? How had she gone from a peaceful life to being the caretaker of a mysterious alien child in less than 24 hours? As she sipped her tea, she heard a soft noise from the living room. Looking up, Emma saw the child stirring. It sat up slowly, its large eyes scanning the room. When it saw Emma, a small smile appeared on its face. It was almost as if it understood that she was its protector now, its only hope. Emma smiled back, though she still felt a mixture of confusion and fear. "Good morning," she said, her voice soft. The child didn't answer. Instead, it reached up, touching its forehead, and then pointed at Emma with a small, delicate finger. The gesture confused Emma at first, but then the child reached out, its hand to her. There was a strange, unspoken connection between them, something that made Emma feel like they understood each other in a way words couldn't explain. "Are you hungry?" Emma asked, still unsure what to do next. The child nodded slowly. It seemed to recognize the word, but not quite understand it fully. Emma stood up and went to the kitchen. As she prepared a simple breakfast, she couldn't help but notice how the child was watching her closely. Its eyes seemed to follow her every move, like it was studying her, trying to learn. When Emma returned with a bowl of fruit, the child reached out again, touching the fruit with its tiny hands. There was something gentle in its movements, as if if it was unsure whether to trust the food. Emma held her breath, wondering if it would eat. The child sniffed the fruit, then tasted it cautiously. Its face lit up with a spark of recognition, and it eagerly grabbed another piece. Emma smiled, relieved. At least, it seemed like it could eat. But as the child ate, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every now and then, the child would stop, look around the room, and its eyes would flash with something she couldn't understand. Fear, worry. It was as if the child was expecting something, waiting for something that Emma couldn't see. "Where did you come from?" Emma whispered, but the child didn't answer. As the day went on, Emma did her best to take care of the child. She found some old clothes from when her nephew had stayed with her and gave them to the alien child. They were too big, but it didn't seem to mind. It was learning, adapting to its new surroundings. But that night, everything changed. Just as Emma was about to go to bed, the child's eyes began to glow. A soft, green light filled the room. Emma froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The child's eyes glowed brighter, and it stood up from the couch, walking toward the window. Emma watched, terrified, as the child reached out its hand, pressing it against the glass. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the child spoke, its voice, soft but clear, almost like a whisper. "They're coming." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what to say. "Who?" she asked, her voice barely audible, but the child didn't respond. It turned away from the window, its eyes dimming again, and sat back down on the couch as if nothing had happened. Emma stood there, confused and scared. Who was coming? And why did the child say it like it knew something she didn't? Was it talking about the people who had crashed the spaceship? Or was there something else? Something even more dangerous? She tried to shake off the feeling, but the unease lingered. Emma couldn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind outside, made her jump. She kept thinking about the child's words. "They're coming." What did it mean, and how was she supposed to protect the alien child from something unknown? A mother's protective instincts, Seema couldn't shake the strange feeling that had settled over her. She had spent the entire night thinking about the child's words. "They're coming." Who were they, and why did the child say it with such certainty? The unease was almost unbearable. The house was too quiet, and the cold wind outside seemed to carry an ominous warning. The morning light didn't offer the comfort Emma had hoped for. As she prepared breakfast, her thoughts kept returning to the glowing eyes of the child and its cryptic message. She felt a sense of responsibility for the child. But it was more than that. There was a deep connection forming between them, one that couldn't be explained. As the child sat at the table, eating quietly, Emma studied it from across the room. The child seemed so innocent, so small, yet there was a weight to its presence, a feeling that something was hidden behind those large, dark eyes. Was it truly a child, or was there more to its story than she understood? After breakfast, Emma decided to take the child outside. The day was cloudy, and the air felt thick, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. The child's small hand gripped hers as they walked through the garden. It was quiet, save for the occasional bird call, and the peacefulness of the moment made Emma's worries seem even more distant. But it wasn't long before the silence was broken. A car drove by, slowly, its engine purring softly in the quiet. Of the day, Emma's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know why, but something about that car made her nervous. It was a dark-colored sedan, its windows tinted too dark to see inside. The car passed, but the feeling of unease didn't go away. The child had stopped walking, its gaze fixed on the car as it disappeared down the road. Emma looked down at the child, and for a split second she thought she saw a flicker of something recognition, maybe, but before she could ask, the child started walking again, pulling her along. "Are you okay?" Emma asked softly. The child didn't answer, but it looked up at Emma with those deep, knowing eyes, as if to say, "No, I'm not okay, but I'm trying to be." The day continued, and the child grew more attached to Emma. It would follow her around the house, watching her every move. At first it had been distant, unsure, but now it seemed to seek her presence, like it knew she was its protector. Emma felt an overwhelming urge to keep the child safe, but she knew she couldn't protect it from everything. She had no idea what was really happening or what the child was running from. That night, Emma couldn't sleep again. The house seemed too quiet, and the shadows in the corners of her room seemed to stretch further than usual. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She was exhausted, both physically and mentally. The child had shown no signs of aggression, quite the opposite, in fact. It was gentle, almost fragile, and yet Emma couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't as helpless as it appeared. There was something else lurking beneath the surface, something Emma couldn't quite put her finger on then. Just as Emma was drifting off to sleep, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps. They were soft, almost like the child's, but the weight of the steps felt different. Emma's heart raced as she sat up in bed. She glanced at the clock. It was well past midnight. The sound came again, this time closer, and Emma's breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she stood and crept to the door of her bedroom. The house was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the moon outside. Emma opened the door quietly, trying not to make a sound. She peered down the hallway. At first, everything seemed normal, but then she saw it. The child was standing in the middle of the hallway, staring at the front door. Its eyes were wide, and the soft glow was coming back again, faint but visible. The child's body was tense, its tiny hands clenched into fists. It didn't seem to notice Emma watching from the doorway. Emma's heart pounded as she stepped forward. "What's wrong?" she whispered. The child didn't respond immediately. Instead, it turned its head slowly toward Emma, its eyes dark and filled with fear. "They're close," it said, its voice barely audible. "I can feel them." Emma's stomach dropped. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier. The child's words were no longer just a warning, they were a threat. The child was scared, but it was also trying to protect Emma, in its own way. Before Emma could speak, the sound of tires on gravel filled the air. The unmistakable hum of an engine grew louder, coming closer. Emma's eyes widened. She knew that sound. It was the same sound from the car the day before. "They've found us," the child whispered, its voice trembling. "They've found me." The hidden truth, the sound of the tires, grew louder, and Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the child who was now trembling. It wasn't just fear on the child's face, it was recognition. The child's dark eyes darted to the window, then back to Emma, as if it knew what was coming. Emma's thoughts were spinning. Who was outside? What did the child mean by "they'd found us"? She had no idea what was going on, but one thing was clear: the child was in danger, and Emma wasn't sure how much longer she could keep it safe. The child's gaze shifted from the window to Emma, and for a brief moment, it looked almost apologetic. "I didn't want you to know, but it's too late now," it said, its voice quiet but filled with urgency. Emma's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean? Who's coming?" The child's eyes glowed faintly as it answered, "My people. They're not like me. They'll doge. Take me back. They'll hurt you, too." Emma didn't understand. "Your people? But you're just a child. Why would they hurt us?" The child shook its head, the fear in its eyes growing. "I'm not just a child. I'm different. I was sent here to hide, to escape. But they found me. They've been tracking me since I left my home." Emma took a step forward, her mind racing. "Why? Why would anyone want to hurt you?" The child lowered its head, the weight of its own, words hanging heavily in the air. "Because I'm not like them. I was born different. They see me as a threat. I had to leave before they could do what they wanted." The truth hit Emma like a wave, washing over her and leaving her breathless. This child wasn't just lost. It was running from something far worse. The child wasn't human, and whoever was chasing it didn't see it as just an innocent creature, but something dangerous. Emma's heart broke for the child. It was so small, so vulnerable. It didn't deserve this. But now, Emma was part of the story. She was caught in the web of danger, and no matter how much she wanted to protect the child, she was in over her head. Suddenly, the sound of the car outside stopped. Emma's breath caught. Was it time? Was this it? The child stood still, its eyes locked on the door, its little body tense with fear. Emma could feel her own pulse quicken, her body ready to spring into action, but she had no idea what to do. Next, she had never been in a situation like this before. "Stay here," Emma whispered urgently to the child. She moved toward the door, trying to stay as quiet as possible. She wasn't sure what was on the other side, but she had to find out. Emma slowly turned the handle and cracked the door open just a little. She peeked outside, her eyes scanning the dark yard. The car that had passed earlier was parked at the end of the driveway, but there was no one around. Emma's heart pounded. Was this a trap? Had they been watching her the entire time? She stepped out onto the porch, keeping to the shadows. She needed to know who was out there, what they wanted, and how to protect the child. Before she could move any further, a voice came from the darkness. It was soft, almost like a whisper, but Emma heard it clearly. "You can't hide from us forever." Emma froze. She knew that voice. It was the same voice that had spoken in the forest, the one that had said, "They're coming." A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall and imposing. Emma's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't a human. The figure was like nothing she had ever seen before. Its skin was a dark, metallic blue, and its eyes glowed with an eerie light. "Stay away from the child," Emma said, her voice shaky but determined. She stepped back, her heart racing. The figure didn't respond, but its eyes never left her. "Let me explain," the figure said in a voice that sent chills down Emma's spine. "We don't want to hurt you. We just need the child. We have our orders." Emma's mind was reeling. What did it want? Why was it so sure that the child was something dangerous? "Who are you?" Emma demanded, her voice gaining strength despite her fear. "What do you want with the child?" The figure stepped forward, its presence looming over her. "We are from the same place. We are sent to retrieve what was lost. The child is a weapon, one that cannot remain in the hands of someone like you." Emma shook her head, not understanding. "A weapon? No, it's just a child. It's just lost." The figure's eyes narrowed. "You are mistaken. The child is not what it seems. It is not like you. It must return. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emma's heart sank as the truth began to form in her mind. The child wasn't just hiding from them. It was running for its life. Before she could react, the figure's hand shot out, grabbing her arm with surprising strength. "You cannot protect it," it said, its voice low and cold. Emma struggled, her fear rising. "Let me go," she cried, but the figure's grip tightened. Just as she thought she couldn't break free, the child's voice filled the air. "Stop." The figure turned its attention to the child, its grip loosening slightly. Emma broke free in that instant and ran to the child's side. The child was standing there, its eyes glowing brighter than ever. "You can't take me," the child said, its voice no longer trembling. It was filled with an authority Emma hadn't heard before. "I won't go back." The figure hesitated, then took a step back. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand enough," the child replied. "I'm not going back, and neither are you." A fight for survival. The figure stepped back into the shadows, its dark eyes still watching Emma and the child closely. The tension hung thick in the air, but Emma didn't let it consume her. The child, standing firm at her side, had a strength that Emma hadn't fully understood until now. This wasn't the same frightened creature she had taken in. There was something more, something fierce. In the way the child stood its ground, the figure paused, its body language indicating some sort of internal struggle. Emma couldn't let this moment slip away. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. She had no idea how to fight whatever this was, but she knew she couldn't back down now. The figure's voice broke the silence. "This doesn't have to end in conflict. Give the child to us, and we will leave you in peace." Emma's hands clenched into fists. She wasn't going to let the child go without a fight. It had trusted her, and she had promised to protect it. Her voice was steady, though fear still lingered in her chest. "I won't give up the child. Not to you or anyone else." The figure's eyes narrowed. "You are making a mistake." Before Emma could react, the ground beneath her seemed to shake. The figure's eyes flickered with an unnatural glow, and suddenly the air seemed charged with electricity. Emma gasped, stumbling back as she felt the pressure build around her. She grabbed the child's hand tightly. "We need to move, now." But the figure wasn't finished. It raised its hand, and from the shadows, dark shapes emerged. They were smaller, more agile than the figure, and they moved toward Emma and the child with terrifying speed. Emma's mind raced. What were these creatures? Where had they come from? Her heart pounded as she realized they were part of the same group, the ones hunting the child. "Run!" Emma shouted to the child, pulling it along as she sprinted toward the woods. Every step felt like a race against time. The dark creatures were closing in, their eyes glowing in the night, their forms almost shadow-like. The child was keeping up, but Emma could feel it growing weaker, its breaths coming in quick, shallow gasps. She turned her head, seeing the creatures gaining on them, their movements predatory. "Please, stay with me," she urged, but the child's small hand in hers was limp. They reached the edge of the woods, where the thick trees could offer some cover. Emma pushed through the underbrush, trying to keep her bearings, but it was hard to think straight. The fear, the unknown, and the overwhelming sense of danger clouded her thoughts. Suddenly, there was a sharp cry from behind them. One of the creatures had caught up to them, leaping through the air with unnatural speed. Emma spun around just in time to see it land right in front of her, blocking their path. The creature's eyes gleamed, and its mouth stretched into a grin, revealing sharp, pointed teeth. Before Emma could react, the child stepped forward, its eyes glowing brighter than ever before. "Get back," the child commanded, its voice filled with power. Emma stood frozen, unsure of what was happening. The child raised its hand, and the air around them seemed to hum. The creature snarled, but it didn't move. Emma could see the child's face contorted with concentration, as it called upon something deep within itself. The creature growled in frustration and lunged, but before it could reach them, a wave of energy shot from the child's outstretched hand. It was like nothing Emma had ever seen. A brilliant light surged from the child, knocking the creature back and sending it crashing to the ground. Emma watched in awe, unable to believe what she had just witnessed. The child was no longer just hiding it, was fighting back, but the victory was short-lived. From the darkness behind them, more creatures emerged. They surrounded them, their glowing eyes focused on the child. The child's face fell, the power from moments ago fading as it looked around, realizing the fight wasn't over. "We're not alone," the child whispered, its voice filled with dread. "There's more of them." Emma's heart sank. She had thought they might escape, but now it seemed like they were trapped. The creatures were closing in, their dark forms shifting like shadows. And then, just when Emma thought things couldn't get worse, the figure reappeared. It stood at the edge of the woods, its tall form casting an ominous shadow. "You should have listened," it said coldly, its voice carrying through the air. "Now you'll pay the price for defying us." Emma felt her stomach drop. The child had done what it could, but they were still surrounded. No matter how much she wanted to protect the child, Emma knew they couldn't keep running forever. They needed help. They needed a way out. But as the creatures advanced, Emma felt a surge of determination. She wasn't going to let them take the child without a fight. Not after everything they had been through together. The child looked up at Emma, its eyes full of fear, but also something else, hope. The bond between them was undeniable. Emma could feel it, like a pulse running between them. "We won't give up," Emma said, her voice steady. "We'll fight together." And, for the first time, the child smiled faint, but full of understanding. Together, it repeated. The final showdown, the air was thick with tension. The child's small frame stood firm beside Emma, their hands still tightly gripping each other. The creatures circled them, their eyes glowing eerily in the dim light, while the figure stood at the edge of the woods, watching. "Do you really think you can stop us?" the figure asked, its voice low and menacing. "You're outmatched. There's no escape." Emma's pulse raced as she looked around. The creatures were closing in from every direction. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. But there was something else, too, something stronger than fear. It was the realization that the child wasn't just an innocent, being caught in the middle of this. It was powerful, and Emma wasn't alone anymore. "We won't go back," the child said, its voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. "I won't let you take me." The child raised its hand again, and Emma felt a strange warmth rush through her. The air around them began to shimmer, and for the first time, Emma saw something inside the child that she hadn't noticed. Before, it wasn't just fear that the child carried. There was a deep well of energy, of power, waiting to be unleashed. The child wasn't just protecting itself. It was ready to fight. The creatures lunged. They were fast, too fast for Emma to react, but before they could reach them, the child's energy exploded in a blinding light. The creatures screeched as the light engulfed them, their bodies twisting and contorting as if they couldn't withstand the force of it. The figure stepped back, a look of surprise crossing its face. This shouldn't be possible, it muttered under its breath. Emma shielded her eyes from the brightness, the air humming with the energy the child was releasing. She had no idea where this power was coming from, but she knew one thing for certain: it was saving them. The child's face was strained, its small form trembling with effort as it maintained the intense energy. The creatures, now recoiling from the light, stumbled backward, their movements erratic. They weren't sure how to fight against it, how to stop the child's power. "Don't stop," Emma urged, her voice filled with fear but also determination. "You're doing it. Keep going." But the child's glow was beginning to fade. Its small body shuddered as it struggled to maintain control. The child's eyes were wide with exertion, and Emma saw the strain on its face. This was too much. The child was giving everything it had, and Emma wasn't sure how long it could hold on. The figure, seeing the child's weakness, moved forward, its body moving with unnatural speed. "Enough of this," it said, its voice cold. The figure raised its hand, a sharp, dark energy crackling at its fingertips. "No," Emma cried, stepping in front of the child instinctively. She couldn't let this happen. Not now, not when they were so close to victory. The figure's energy shot forward like a bolt, aimed directly at the child. Emma's heart raced as she saw the child's glow flicker in the path of the blast. Without thinking, Emma lunged toward the child, throwing herself in front of the attack. But the blast never reached them. At the last moment, something unexpected happened. The air seemed to ripple, and the child's energy flared again, this time brighter and stronger than before. The dark energy from the figure collided with the child's power. Sending a shockwave through the forest, Emma was thrown backward, landing hard on the ground, but she quickly pushed herself up, her breath shallow from the force of the blast. The world around her seemed to spin, but she couldn't take her eyes off the child. The figure, now recoiling from the force of the collision, stumbled back. "Impossible," it whispered, clearly shaken by the power the child had unleashed. The creatures, too, seemed to hesitate. They were still recovering from the blast, but it was clear that their confidence was shaken. The child had done what Emma thought was impossible. It had held its ground. The creature's leader, the figure, was starting to understand the child's true power. Emma scrambled to her feet, her voice firm. "You're not taking it. We'll fight for as long as it takes." The figure's expression hardened. "You are more trouble than you are worth. But it seems I have underestimated you." The tension was thick as the figure raised its hand, once more preparing for another attack, but the child wasn't finished. It stepped forward, its small hand extended toward the figure, eyes glowing fiercely. This time, Emma could feel the power gathering, stronger than before. The child was ready to finish what they had started. "I won't go back," the child said, its voice filled with fierce determination. "I've found my place, and I'm not going anywhere." The figure paused, its cold gaze faltering for the first time. Something had shifted in the child's easifier that Emma had never seen before. The child wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. It was fighting for something more. It was fighting for its right to live, to exist in peace. And as the child's energy surged one last time, the figure finally stepped back. "This isn't over," it said, its voice low and full of venom. "You may have won this battle, but there will be others. You cannot hide forever." With that, the figure turned and disappeared into the darkness, the creatures following closely behind, For a moment, Emma and the child were alone in the woods, surrounded by the aftermath of the battle. The child was trembling, its small body still glowing with a faint light. But Emma could see the exhaustion in its eyes. Emma stepped forward, her heart filled with gratitude and awe. She placed her hand gently on the child's shoulder. "You did it. You saved us." The child looked up at her, its eyes soft. "I couldn't have done it without you. Can I stay with you too?" The battle was over. For now, at least. Emma stood in the woods, surrounded by the stillness that followed the chaos. The creatures were gone, retreating into the dark, and the figure who had seemed so sure of its victory had vanished into the shadows, leaving only a lingering sense of dread in its wake. But despite the silence that had returned, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't truly over. She turned to the child, whose small form was still glowing faintly in the dark. The energy that had surged through it earlier was now beginning to fade, and the child's shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "You're amazing," Emma said, her voice filled with awe. "I don't know how you did it, but you saved us." The child's eyes were filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," it whispered. "I just wanted to be safe." Emma knelt down beside the child, placing a hand on its small shoulder. "You didn't hurt anyone. You protected us. You fought when you had to, but you didn't want to hurt them." The child nodded slowly, but there was a sadness in its eyes that Emma couldn't ignore. It wasn't just fear, it was something deeper, something Emma couldn't fully understand. The silence between them stretched, both of them exhausted from the events that had unfolded. Emma wanted to say something comforting, something to make everything feel okay again, but the words didn't come. They were still in danger. The figure and its creatures had retreated, but Emma knew that wasn't the end of it. The child had a past, one that Emma didn't fully understand, and that past was coming for them. The child looked up at Emma, its face softening. "I'm sorry," it said, its voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to bring this into your life." Emma's heart tightened. "You didn't bring it. I chose to help you. I wanted to help, and I still do." The child's eyes shimmered as if it was about to say something, but then it hesitated. It looked away, staring into the darkness of the woods. Emma followed the child's gaze, her own thoughts racing. They couldn't stay here. They couldn't stay anywhere that wasn't safe. But where could they go? Where could the child hide from its past, from the people who were chasing it? Emma didn't know, but one thing was clear. She couldn't let the child face it alone. "We'll figure it out," Emma said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty she felt. "We'll find a way to stay safe together." The child turned, its gaze back to Emma, its large eyes filled with gratitude. It took a step forward, then hesitated, as if unsure of what to say next. "Can I stay with you?" the child asked, its voice small and vulnerable. Emma's heart skipped a beat. The question was simple, yet it held so much weight. The child was asking for something she wasn't sure she could provide: safety, protection, a future. But in that moment, looking into the child's eyes, Emma knew the answer. "You can stay with me," Emma replied softly. "As long as you need, I'll protect you. We'll stay together." The child's eyes filled with something Emma hadn't seen before: peace. It was a quiet, simple look, but it spoke volumes. For the first time in a long while, the child seemed to believe that things might be okay. "Thank you," the child whispered. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know how long they could stay hidden, or what dangers still lay ahead. But she knew one thing for sure: she had made a promise to this child, and no matter what came their way, she was going to keep it. Together they walked away from the woods, their steps soft in the cool night. The moon hung high above, casting a gentle light on their path. The world around them seemed quieter now, the chaos of the past few days fading into the background. But Emma knew it wasn't truly over. The threat wasn't gone. And yet, with the child by her side, Emma felt a sense of strength she hadn't known she had. She was no longer just protecting the child, she was protecting them both.